Oh my God, I'm coughing too. What's up, everybody? Now, you might be like, Dax, why are you being dramatic? Why are you waddling into frame? I even focus. Oh, this video is already off to this type of start. Why are you waddling into frame, Dax? Why are you waddling over? And you might be like, Dax, you're being dramatic. And yes, I am a dramatic man. I do end up being dramatic more often than not. But no, it's because my legs are sore. My legs are sore because actually this last weekend, by the way, timestamp here if you have no care in the world and just want to know what you want to hear me yap about the thumbnail and the title, which is probably why you click on this video. Anyway, but I'm going to yap about myself first because I did something I'm pretty proud of. We ran our first marathon. Yes, first marathon this last weekend, the Toronto Waterfront Marathon, literally 2 days ago. So yeah, it makes sense that my legs, I feel, I don't want to be like presumptuous. I don't know if that's even the right word, and be like, this is probably what it feels like when your limbs get, or your joints get really like tight when you get older. But maybe this is a glimpse into the future. I don't know if that's actually true. Nonetheless, the point is my legs hurt. I completed a marathon, super proud of myself. It was really, really hard too. Don't get me wrong. I think as a runner that I had been doing a lot of running, you don't really understand how hard every extra kilometer gets after 30 kilometers. I think it's pretty feasible for anyone to run a half marathon with 6 months of training, 3 months maybe if you're a generally fit person. But half marathon's a lot, but it's really 2 hours of running. So if you can just sustain 2 hours and a half, maybe 3 hours of slow running, you can do a half. I believe most people watching this video can do a half marathon, but a full marathon, that extra 22 kilometers, 21 kilometers, whatever it is in miles, 13 miles, really does add up. So nonetheless, I'm proud of myself. We are back here with the YAP session, season 4. I did make a mistake in the last YAP session. I said it was season 3. No, this is actually season 4 of the YAP sessions, episode 2. So welcome. Today we're talking about addiction. Today we're going to be sitting while talking about Pokemon Go addiction because my legs hurt, so that's definitely where we're going to be finding a spot. But I want to talk about addiction because I think this is an important topic to cover. This feels like one of those topics that I might have covered, but I did some Googling and I checked all my YAP sessions, and I don't think I've talked about Pokemon Go addiction and what it's like to kind of be addicted, because video game addiction is very much a thing. Addiction, you can get addicted to pretty much anything in the world, from what I understand. We're going to do some Google searches and see exactly what addiction means, but you can get addicted to a lot of things, and Pokemon Go is one of them. And a phrase you will hear often, and I even say this phrase, is that Pokemon Go, you can have a very toxic relationship with Pokemon Go. There's a lot of people who have toxic relationships with the game, and there's a couple of reasons why, which we'll cover in this video, and how to kind of get over those if that's something you might be struggling with. But if not, watch this video because I think it could be always important to you always want to be addressing your relationship with the game and with a lot of things in life. That's something I'm always doing. I'm always readdressing my relationships. Does this relationship bring me value? Am I happy in this relationship? And more often than not, it's good, but it's good to be on the, track of that and always, not always, not every single second, but maybe every year, be okay, hey, I've been playing this game a lot for last year. Has it been bringing me joy? If it's bringing me joy, okay, good, move on. But it's good to readdress those things because you don't want to get in a point where you never process things. It's just very important in life to process things and always kind of be double checking in, making sure that you're using your life to the best of your ability, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Because at the end of the day, we only have one life. You don't want to get kind of stuck in a loop where you're playing this game that, you might think is really, really helping you, but really it's actually causing you some pain, or it's not helping you as much, and there could be just way better uses of your time. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Pokemon Go is, I'm not saying a time waster, but the whole point of Pokemon Go in a video game is to kind of de-stress, disconnect and have some relaxing time. It's not Pokemon Go should be the most productive thing that's going to get you through life, and it's going to be helpful towards your career, which theoretically it is as a stress reliever. But it's still important to make sure that Pokemon Go still, I guess, is doing the role that you want Pokemon Go to do the role of in your life. And check that. So we're going to talk about Pokemon Go addiction because it's a very important topic. My legs really hurt. I'm going to try to find a seat to sit down. I don't know how much we'll be moving during this YAP session, so bear with me. But yeah, oh my legs are, I'm surprised though, I thought it was going to be a lot worse. I'm surprisingly able to walk. I'm actually streaming, the Halloween event starts in 23 minutes, so I'm actually streaming that event after, which is good By the way, any runners, after you run a long run, always remember to walk after, because that really loosens the legs. If you just sit down, your legs lock up, and then you're just cooked. You're cooked. You're cooked. So luckily, I'm not cooked. I'm half cooked. Anyway, I gotta stop saying cooked. I'm kind of hungry too right now. Okay, this is just, I don't even know what I'm saying. Let me go find a spot to sit. By the way, it's like fall here. I don't know if you can even see it. It's still super green because I guess I'm around a bunch of pines. Let me see if I can find a spot where you can see how fall it is. That'd be cool. Oh my God, that dog's running like crazy. Okay, I found a bench. Hopefully you guys can see me. Nonetheless, let's talk. I don't even know if I can really kind of look towards you guys. Let me bring this closer, actually. This is a bit better. Cool. Okay, addiction. I had a side note I wanted to say about something, but I completely forget what it is. Let's talk about Pokemon Go addiction. Okay, first thing I just searched up first in the search bar. First thing we need to look at is the definition of addiction, at least based on Google, because we always do this. Let's take a look at what Google is saying about addiction. So addiction is a neuropsychological disorder. That's a big word for the kid, let's just say that. Characterized by the persistent and intense urge to use a drug or engage in behavior that produces natural reward despite substantial harm or other negative consequences. Okay, so I actually do like this description. I think this is a very good one to put out. Now, obviously, we can kind of just put drug away. Now, can we say dopamine? Dopamine is the drug of just like, I think it's just the drug of satisfaction. I'm not 100% sure. I guess I could just Google that. What is dopamine? Dopamine. Neurological molecule that plays several roles in cells. It is an organic chemical. Dopamine constitutes about 80%. Okay, this is too complicated. Dopamine acts on areas of the brain to give you feelings of pleasure, satisfaction, and motivation. Okay, so dopamine is pretty much what it's not really a drug. Okay, so I don't really know what I'm saying, but dopamine is like what you get when you feel pleasure, I guess. So like when you play Pokemon Go, you probably feel some sort of dopamine. So it's not a drug, so we can obviously avoid that. But it is engaging in a behavior that produces a natural reward despite substantial consequences or negative consequences. Now, for most people, you're probably, I'm not in focus. You're probably not going to be getting many negative, I guess, consequences or harm from playing Pokemon Go. That is not a very common thing that a lot of people will be experiencing. But that is something that some certain people can go ahead and experience from playing the game. And that's kind of like what we're going to be trying to do today, trying to break down how to, like, I guess, know when you're getting negative consequences and when you should kind of look at Pokemon Go or like as an addiction. Now, I say it as an addiction. I can't even speak. As an addiction. I want to say just because I've been addicted to Pokemon Go. I've had situations where I've been addicted. Doesn't mean it's a constant thing. It doesn't mean you have to completely cold turkey stop the game. You can still play Pokemon Go in a healthy way and have like those balances, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. But like, so just because you might have like an addiction at some point doesn't mean you can't get over it and still play the game and enjoy the game, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So anyway, let's get into it. First of all, talking about how to tell, in my opinion, if it's a problem or not. Let me bring this over here so you guys can see me. Great. Now, the number one thing I always ask myself, and I always tell people to ask themselves if they can tell if Pokemon Go is a problem in your life or not, is does it bring you joy? Does it bring you joy or does it bring you sadness? Because this bench is cracking. At the end of the day, that is literally the point of video games. The point of video games is to bring you joy and be a stress reliever from all the struggles that we go through in day-to-day life. Because I understand everybody goes through struggles from day to day. And you escape. You escape to Pokemon Go. You escape to movies, to TV shows. That's the whole point. We have an entertainment, I guess, industry, you could say, in the world, is because people need that, or else like we would just go crazy, or like we would have a very depressed society, you could say. So that's kind of like the base question of how to tell if you're addicted or not. Does it bring you joy or not? That's the first question you should ask yourself, because if it doesn't bring you joy, then there's another reason you might be playing it, and it's probably because of addiction. The second way to tell if you're addicted is if it's taking away, if it's causing harm, because at the end of the day, that's what we were talking about earlier. Like, in the definition of addiction, for you to be addicted to something, it also needs to kind of have it has to have that negative impact, I guess, is what they're trying to say. So you need to address with yourself, and I guess with the game, does it bring negative harm? Now, negative harm can be seen in a lot of ways. Is it taking time away from other things that are important to you, other relationships that might be important to you? Are you pushing your body? Like this is actually something I think of. If you're pushing your body way too hard, it's interesting because Pokemon Go is a great game where it gets you outside, gets you physical, and gets you moving and stuff. But if you're like playing it so much where you're forgetting to eat, you don't have time to eat to get energy, or you're just like walking so much that you're hurting your ankle, and even when your ankle's hurting, like you still want to go out and keep walking and playing and pushing through that pain. Like you don't want, like, it's a weird balance where Pokemon Go is a great motivator to get out, but you don't want it to cause you any damage, right? And now some of this can be obviously mitigated. Like for example, like sunburns. Pokemon Go can obviously cause you sunburns because you're outside playing all day, and you could obviously mitigate that by putting on sunscreen. Just because people get sunburns doesn't mean you shouldn't play Pokemon Go, but like, if you're completely forgetting to eat and take care of your body in that way because you're playing Pokemon Go all day, that's when, so take a look at the harm that it could be causing. It's also good to look at, if you can't figure it out for yourself, ask your friends. Be like, hey, how do you see my relationship with Pokemon Go? Like, you could say, does it bother you, or does it, like, because if it bothers them and they feel like maybe you guys aren't hanging out enough and your relationship with your friends isn't going as well because you're always playing Pokemon Go, like that's when you could consider, because because it's important to get that outside perspective, because you're not always going to be able to look at your life in every single aspect, and it's good to get different perspectives. Granted, always take them with a grain of salt, because people don't know you as well as you know yourself, generally. No, I'll say mostly, because you're always in your own head. So you know what you're thinking and what you're doing. But take it with a grain of salt, and always ask for different perspectives, because that might be able to kind of like help tell you if it is. Now, if all this that I'm saying here, you're like, oh my God, this is great, you most likely don't have an addiction. But it is important to know, because you don't really want to build that toxic relationship with Pokemon Go, and you kind of want to be able to always be remembering, keeping an eye out for these things, like, if you start to realize like you're playing this game a lot, and again, there's nothing wrong with playing Pokemon Go a lot, that's what hardcore players do. It's more important to just address, like, how are other aspects of your life doing? Because again, you don't want to mitigate important things in your life, important relationships, important things that help your mental health. Like, let's say you really enjoy kayaking on weekends, but then you stop kayaking because you just are playing so much Pokemon Go and you're getting so much dopamine out of Pokemon Go. Consider that. Now, obviously, that could be a good trade-off for you, because maybe it's not time for you to enjoy kayaking, and you've kind of done so much kayaking that, you're like, okay, let me try something new. But then if it's still an important thing in your life, but you're just kind of like throwing it out of the way because Pokemon Go, like that's when you can consider it. So that's very important to know. The second thing I want to discuss here is the sunken cost fallacy, and I guess FOMO, because I think these have a really big, I don't even know if it's like an impact, but like they have a lot to do with, addiction and the unhealthy relationship in Pokemon Go. So first, let me explain the sunken cost fallacy. I've talked about this a lot on the channel. I feel like I'm talking really fast today. Am I talking really fast today? I don't really know. The sunken cost fallacy. I'm going to change the angle of the camera, sorry. I don't know why I keep repeating the sunken cost fallacy. Sunken cost fallacy is when you've invested something into an activity or whatever, you've invested money. It's really hard to step away, because you're invested, you're monetarily invested. It doesn't even have to be monetarily, it could be time and stuff like that. A great example I always use, I made a whole video on this actually. Imagine you go to a movies, okay? You buy your movie ticket, you start watching the movie, 30 minutes in, you're like, this is actually the worst movie I've ever seen in the world. Like, you actually hate it. It doesn't have to be the worst movie you've ever seen, but you're like, this is bad. Would you step out of that movie theater and go home because you're not enjoying it? Or would you stay because you've already spent money and 30 minutes of your time watching part of the story? It's the same thing with Pokemon Go, and Pokemon Go has the sunken cost fallacy to the extreme, because you have your account. Like, you can honestly say this about any video game that is never, like a never-ending collection video game. You have your account, you've played, I'm sure you've put a lot of time into your account, you've gone out on a lot of days, you've potentially spent gas money to get to parks to play events or to drive around and play. You've potentially spent money on like food that you wouldn't have spent on if you weren't out playing. Like you've just invested so much. Even if you haven't bought Pokecoins in Pokemon Go, you've still invested money into the game by playing it because it's a mobile game. You have to go out of the house. So generally, like you can even think of it this way. Like this is a very specific example, but because you play Pokemon Go, you probably go out for more walks than you would if you didn't play, which means you're gonna wear out your shoes faster, which means you're gonna have to buy shoes earlier, which means you're spending more money on shoes. Like that's a very specific example, but by Pokemon Go being a mobile game that you have to go out to play, it makes it so that you're gonna end up just spending more money that you would normally, which means you're gonna invest money into the game, you're gonna invest time into the game, making it really, really hard for you to not quit, or like it almost motivates you to keep pushing because you're like, I spent so much time and money into this game. You could potentially be like, I'm so far ahead of other players that you keep pushing and you keep playing this game and you could develop an addiction. And I think that's something that I really felt back in 2020 when I first started replaying the game during COVID. I felt like I had spent so much time and money over the last, like from 2020 to 2021. In 2021 to 2022, I played the game so much like in an unhealthy manner because I'd spent so much time and money in 2020 on the game that I felt like, okay, I couldn't quit. I couldn't take a break. I need to keep pushing. But it wasn't like I was even enjoying the game anymore. Like I wasn't really enjoying the game as much at that time. And I was really in need for a break because I had been playing, that's like when I say I was probably most addicted to Pokemon Go, because I was going out and playing the game. I wasn't spending much time with friends as I wanted to. Granted, you couldn't as much because it was still COVID, so you couldn't really see people. But there was other things I wanted to do with my life. It was just taking away a lot of time from my life. Now, granted, it's a weird thing for me to talk about because it is my job, so there is that aspect to it. But I've seen this in different aspects of my life where there's some things I get really, really into, like Pokemon cards, for example. I make no money off Pokemon cards. I do that as a complete personal joy. But then I would start spending so much money on Pokemon cards, buying the new cards, getting the best deck, because I did a lot of battling, and I still do, like every once in a while. It's much more healthy now, but like I would spend so much, me and my friends would play, and I was just spending so much money. Oh my God, that's a cute little rough collie. Sorry, literally distracted. I spent so much money on Pokemon cards and so much time developing my decks. And then there came a point where I was like, my friends were like, hey, you want to play? And I was like, yeah, but like I didn't, because I was just so addicted to the cards and to the sunken cost fallacy. So that's something you really want to keep in mind. Don't be scared of the sunken cost fallacy. Do not be scared. And again, I think the best way to get over this is just to think that you have one life, limited time. So if you're not enjoying something, like get rid of it as quick as possible, because you really want to make sure you're spending time in your life doing things you enjoy. Now, granted, I always say this stuff, always easier said than done. It's like if I, like, granted, I still really enjoy Pokemon Go and I enjoy playing the game, and obviously it's a game I've made a whole career over, so I really do enjoy it. But if let me look at a different example. Like, I don't really have anything right now in my life that I don't really enjoy, but let's say I'm playing something, I pick up a game. If I'm not enjoying that, it is sometimes hard to put down, especially when you've invested time into. So I just want to say, be kind with yourself, take your time. But again, try your best to assess whether you're kind of just playing the game because of the sunken cost fallacy and you don't want to kind of give up on that, I guess. But another thing to talk about is FOMO, because Pokemon Go has a lot of FOMO and they really strive on FOMO. Fear of missing out is what FOMO stands for. It's pretty much a marketing thing. There's plenty of different companies that do them, but pretty much Pokemon Go will, drop events, drop exclusive Pokemon, exclusive shinies. You can only get this Pokemon for 7 days, for 2 days, for 3 days, or for this season. And you never know when things are going to come back, making it a very addicting game in that sense, where like you feel like if you stop playing, you're going to miss out on things for when you want to come back, or you're just going to miss out on things, I guess. And that's something that I guess is very important to kind of realize, that like everything's going to come back in Pokemon Go. Do not let FOMO control you. Like, that's one of the ways to think about it is that. Then the second way to think about it is people are always playing Pokemon Go. So even if you do end up quitting or taking a break, let's say you take a break for 6 months, you miss out on a bunch of new content. Most likely, you could probably just get that stuff traded over to you, or again, you could just wait until it comes back, because almost everything comes back in Pokemon Go. I think the only thing that's never come back in Pokemon Go is Armored Mewtwo. I'm pretty sure that's the only thing we haven't seen been duplicated, other than some of the new mythicals, but most likely those will be duplicated, and you will have a chance to get a second one because that has happened. But I think Armored Mewtwo, if I'm right, and the clones are some of the onlys, and then some of the costumes as well. But again, you can get all that stuff traded. So again, don't let FOMO kind of like, I guess, guide you in Pokemon Go, because it is, I would say, arguably one of the biggest reasons people end up with addictions or toxic relationships with Pokemon Go, where they play it when they don't enjoy it, is because they literally feel the urge to play it, or else you're gonna miss out on something. Now again, I'm gonna say it's hard. It's hard because Pokemon Go, they do a good job. It's a good marketing technique from them to make things exclusive. It makes it more exciting. It makes it like you can really turn a trashy event into something really fun if you just throw in a very exclusive Pokemon that you can only get during that event. Okay, I say really fun. Like once you catch the Pokemon, it's like blah, blah, whatever. But like, yeah, making things exclusive is definitely something that Pokemon Go does, and it can get you. It can get you. Now, again, the number one thing to think is everything comes back in Pokemon Go. So do not be scared. Do not be scared to take a break because of FOMO. And I think that's the two number one things I want to say. If you're watching this video and you're like, I play Pokemon Go a lot, I might be addicted. Think about, is it the sunken cost fallacy? Is it FOMO, or do you still enjoy Pokemon Go? That's like the three ways to look at this. If you want to know if you're addicted, you think, are you stuck because of the sunk cost fallacy? You don't want to quit because you've invested so much time? Do you not want to quit because there's stuff that you're going to miss out on? Or do you actually truly enjoy the game? It still brings you value, all that stuff. And I'm going to give you guys a tip here. I'm actually going to move here in a second. I'm going to give you guys a tip here on how to really tell if you're addicted or not. Because I think like thinking all this stuff, sometimes it's tough. Sometimes it's tough to process things and like just figure it out mentally. Sometimes you actually have to put the actions in, and it really opens up, you know, how you're feeling. Like you can look at an example of anything. Like if you're, I don't know, let's say you're not really doing a lot of fitness in your life, and you're thinking to yourself, like, should I do fitness or shouldn't I? Or no, let's do the reverse. Let's say you're doing a lot of fitness let's say you're doing you're going on runs, you're staying healthy, blah, blah, blah. But then you get tired and you're like, you know what? You know, maybe I could just like not run as much, you know, like, because I'm too exhausted or like, you know, blah, 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 whatever. Your life is going fine. And then you're like, okay, let me stop running. So you stop running. You stop running for a bit. Whether the running was helping you or not is going to become very, very apparent when you stop running, because you're going to see things very, very quickly. You're going to, number one, you might feel worse. You might feel better. You might feel worse. You might start gaining weight. You might start losing weight. Like, it's what I'm pretty much trying to say. I don't know why I'm making this such a complicated topic. I'm pretty much trying to say is once you start testing things, it's going to become more clear whether that thing was helping you or not. And that's what I think you guys should really do. Let me go find a different spot to sit. I'm going to waddle over, and we're going to talk about this, because I want to talk about, now that we know how to tell if you're addicted or not, how do we fix that problem? I guess is what I'm trying to say. By the way, I just want to say this right now. This is just all my random thoughts, and I feel like I have to make this clear every single video. This is not by any means like therapy or true professional advice. These videos are just me yapping about my thoughts, and I hope that it's able to help some of you guys. So if some of this, I guess, advice kind of helped you, let me know in the comments. If it doesn't, again, whatever, it's fine. Take everything in life with a grain of salt, because again, my life's not your life. I can't tell you how to live your life. I don't know what you deal with. I'm sure you deal with plenty of problems that I could never relate to. I could never imagine how hard are. So again, put this in the context of your life. I'm not saying y'all are addicted to Pokemon Go. I'm not saying every single person watching this video is addicted to Pokemon Go. I'm just saying assess it, because I want the best life for everybody. And again, you only got one life. So if you're not enjoying Pokemon Go, do not waste it, because I know, I've seen it. I know how many years this game can take off people's lives when they could have been doing so much different stuff that could have just brought them so much more joy. Anyway, I'm gonna move. Ow, oh my God, jumping Jalusif. Guys, I found a log. Oh, I feel like this is probably not the best for my legs, but anyway, I hope this is able to show a little bit more of the fall vibes that we got going on around here. Because it is pretty beautiful, actually. It is pretty beautiful. By the way, I haven't put screen recording on this whole YAP session. Let me know if you like that or not, because I found that generally I'm yapping so much that I don't really have time to like play Pokemon Go. So this video ends up just being like me talking with like my Pokemon Go menu on the side. So if you like it just me sitting here, let me know. If you want to see the screen recordings come back to the side, we can do that. Anyway, take a break. That's what I want to say. Take a break. It's literally the best way to know if you're addicted to Pokemon Go or not, and if it was bringing you joy or not. Because at the end of the day, if you're playing it every single day, and you take, and I want to say, when I say take a break, take like a month. Take a good amount of time off of the game. Don't like take a week off, because one thing about addiction, one thing about like quitting in anything or starting any new routine, like my friends are always, because I wake up really early. I'm a person who wakes up really early. I enjoy that. I get up at 5 a.m. And then I go to bed at 9 p.m. So I get my 8 hours, but I get up early and I go to bed early. I just find myself more productive. My friends are like, oh, you get so much done. I'm gonna try getting up early. And they do it for a week, and they're like, oh, I'm so tired, or I can't. You can't do something for a week and really understand what it's like, because obviously you're completely changing your routine, so you're not gonna be used to it. And the same thing comes in with Pokemon Go. If you're gonna take a break as a test to know if you're addicted or not, and if this game is actually helping you or not, you have to do at least a month. I'd say you have to stop the game for a month. After a month, be like, okay, did I really miss Pokemon Go and those moments, and I haven't really found anything new to fill that time with, and I'm just kind of missing joy from my life? Then most likely everything was fine. But if you take a break, the first week, second week's probably gonna be hard, because you're just the whole time you're like, oh, I wanna play Pokemon Go, I wanna go play Pokemon Go. But then let's say the third week you pick up a new skill or a new thing, or you develop a new relationship, maybe romantically, maybe platonically. I think that's just the best way. Again, you don't have to do a month if you don't want to. But if you are actually arguably considering, and you're like, I might have a Pokemon Go addiction, consider taking a break. But then I'm going to say something completely contradictory. Don't overthink it as well. I think it's going to be very, very clear if you might be addicted to Pokemon Go or have a very toxic relationship with Pokemon Go. It's most likely going to be clear, and you'll know. So I don't recommend taking a break of Pokemon Go if you think your relationship with the game is healthy, and it's all I'm saying, it's clear. It's pretty clear when the game is taking a lot of your time. If you're just like playing the game non-stop and you haven't talked to your family or friends in a while, or you talk to them like once a day, or you haven't seen them in a while, it's pretty clear. So also don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. If you're watching this video, most likely people who are still watching this video are people who potentially think they might be playing too much. But if you're watching this video and you're like, none of this sounds like me, then yeah, most likely it's not you, And again, I'm gonna go back to the thing I said before. Take this stuff with a grain of salt and reflect it in your life, because my life is so different than yours. So everybody's life is different. All of our lives, everybody who's watching these videos, life is different. They deal with different things. So we can't all kind of just gobble up the same advice. You know what I'm saying, I guess. And the final thing I'll say here is don't be scared to try something new. I think that's a lot of the fear, or the addiction, or I guess comes from, and I completely understand this, it's just the comfort you get in doing something that you're familiar with. Pokemon Go, it's a game that's very easy to get familiar with. It's very easy to get into a routine for Pokemon Go. I'd say even more, I'd say most video games, maybe actually a little less than other video games, but you can very easily integrate this into your life and make it just let's say when you go do groceries, your plan is always to play Pokemon Go, or when you do your morning dog walk, your plan is always to play Pokemon Go. It's very easy to integrate into your life. So it can be very, very scary to kind of disconnect from that and try something new. Change is scary. Change is hard, because it's the unknown. It's something that I've always struggled with, the fear of the unknown, not knowing, not being able to control where your life is going is very, very scary. But unfortunately, it's literally just a reality of life. You can't control everything. There are some things you can control, like your actions, how you treat others, different stuff like that. But a lot of things are out of your control. Just because you treat someone well doesn't mean they're going to treat you well back, because you have no control over how they treat you back. So same thing with Pokemon Go. Quitting, you're not going to have control over what the next thing you do. Well, I guess you would, actually. It's not a really good example. You don't have control over the future is what I'm trying to say. all the future. You could make a plan. You could have an idea of where you think you're headed, but doesn't mean it's going to happen. Well, that's not really good because, like, yes, I feel like I'm not explaining this how I kind of want to explain this. The future is unknown. Anything is possible is, I guess, what I'm trying to say. You can have a plan, work towards that plan, and hit your goals. I strongly believe in that. I literally am an example of this because I wanted to run a marathon since 2020, and this year I did it, or 2 days ago I did it. So you can definitely achieve your goals, but what I'm trying to say, forget everything else I said because I just said that completely wrong, is that the future is unknown, change can be scary, and you might not have control over everything in the future, but just know you can control yourself, what you do, your happiness. So try to take care of that. Because again, at the end of the day, and the reason I'm making this video is because I want you guys to be happy, and I think it's always good to check in because, you know, when you're having a good time, you know, Palkia just dropped in raids, blah, blah, blah. Like, you're not thinking about what's best for your life. You're just enjoying the moment, having a good time, seeking in that dopamine, just draining it in. But it's good. It's good to reflect. It's good to process. And I hope this video maybe allowed some of you guys to process and look at it. And again, if it's not for you, blah, blah, blah. Keep playing the game. I enjoy it. But take a look at your life. And hopefully you guys are playing Pokemon Go in a healthy manner. And I guess all video games, you can take this advice and kind of just spread it out over all video games. Nonetheless, we're going to do what we do on every single episode of the YAP sessions. We're going to take a look at last week's video. We are back with the weekly YAP sessions. I'm going to push them into November. Again, the plan is to just do them until it gets too cold to be outside. And then some people had some great ideas saying that we could yap in a car or by a fireplace. That sounds kind of vibey. I don't know where I'd find a fireplace. I'm sure there's a spot I could start a fire. Like, okay, we'll start a fire, not in that sense. Nonetheless, let's get into it. So last week we talked about my thoughts on Gigantamax that was coming. Remember, Gigantamax is Dynamax, but you need a minimum of 10 people, max of 40. And they seem like, based on everything we've learned about them, it seems like they're going to be working kind of like the raid weekends, the shadow raid weekends, where they kind of just appear and they'll refresh, you know, every hour. But they're not going to be at every single power stop. So that's kind of what we understand. Nonetheless, we're going to go through the comments, your guys' reactions, take a look at them. Then I'm going to ask a question this week. I guess I'll ask it now. If you have any thoughts on addiction, or you know what, let's do this. If you have any stories from your friends or different battles you've gone through on video game addiction or just any sort of addiction, feel free to share them in the comments. We'll look at them next week and share some stories, because I think that could also give some good perspective to anyone watching this video to help them understand how they might be, you know, have a toxic relationship. I don't know if addiction is the word I should be throwing around, because that is a pretty intense word. More toxic relationship with Pokemon Go, we could say. Nonetheless, we got Michael Scott, the top comment here. Couldn't disagree more. Dynamax is lame, and Canamax and Gigantamax being either better. It's just boring and useless. Won't be doing them. Okay, interesting point. I do agree, and we did talk about that in the video. I think Dynamax did kind of get stale. I will say, though, I think it's important to always test something before you give your opinion. In this video, I do give my opinion saying that I'm excited for and I have potential, and I think it could be very fun. Michael, I agree, it could be lame, but I do think it's a little like, let us at least test it before we fully say it's a feature that sucks. Now, granted, again, we can use what we know. Dynamax was this, Gigantamax, pretty similar to Dynamax. If Dynamax sucks, Gigantamax most likely will probably not be very good. But again, I think it's very important before you just say something completely sucks or something is amazing, you test it, which granted, I might be at fault at that, because I might have done that a little bit in the last video, but anyway. Niantic doesn't seem to realize most people play Pokemon Go. This is from Pool Kid. Play Pokemon Go are nerds. Nerds don't tend to have 10 to 40 friends that can corral at moments no one's take down a hard boss. Lucky if they can go one person, also play if that. Interesting theory, I guess you could say. People that play Pokemon Go are nerds. Nerds don't have a lot of friends. I feel like that's just like a general, I'm not going to try to call you out, Pool Kid, but that's just kind of like assuming that people don't have friends because they're into video games. I don't think that's very true. I would argue that people who are into video games actually have a lot of friends because of online communities. Like, I remember I used to make most of my friends playing, it wasn't Fortnite I played a lot of, but like games like Halo, Reach, Call of Duty, all that stuff. Most of my friends I would make through games like that. So interesting, I guess, theory you could say. I don't know if I fully agree with this. But I do agree, 10 people is still a lot. But this whole like statement, you could also say things about raids, you know, like being able to corral a bunch of people is a problem, not only if you're a nerd, but like for anyone, I guess you could say. Because again, it's hard to get 10 people What is it behind me? It's just a bunch of squirrels. It's hard to get 10 people in a group. Beldum was the first 3-star Dynamax. That is very true, actually. I was incorrect about that. Niantic just needs to allow us to remote battle them. I mean, this is how we beat the special max battles in the main series games. We invite friends to join our session. Why Niantic refuses to allow that is dumb. Yeah, I think the whole point of what Niantic is trying to do now is every new feature they drop, they don't want to allow to have remotes because they don't want to be going back and forth and removing it. Their whole plan for the future is to make everything local. I don't even think they want remote raid passes in the game anymore based on everything they've been doing. So based on why I think Niantic is doing this, the reason they're refusing, from what I understand, is because their game, they want it to be all local. They want people to go outside to play. So they'll never drop a feature now that they have this idea in their head that doesn't encourage that, I guess, is what you're saying. And now, again, we've talked about the remote raid thing and the accessibility. I fully agree it's a problem, but I do also, like, from my perspective and having played this for the last 4 years, Niantic is stubborn. I don't see them changing. We've done the whole Heroes Niantic thing twice to try to push it back, and no budge. So I think for the remote thing, you kind of at this point, at least, and I don't want to be negative Nancy, but I kind of just have accepted that Niantic is not going to change this back. It's just going to kind of be the way it is. So if that's not for you, that's not for you, and that's fine. Just don't, I guess, interact with that part of the game. And I think that's something very important to notice, and I think we're going to go through some of these questions. There it is. YAP sessions are back. Let's go, Waffle Kid. Yapping in the winter should be on a comfy couch with a hot beverage. That sounds vibey. Thank you, Tom. Extra points if there's a fireplace. Yeah. And snow at the window. That would be fire, actually. PokeK had suggested in future, certain Pokemon may only release as Gmax. Eternatus, for example. That could be a reason to care. That's very true, actually. There are certain Pokemon, even Duraludon, that's not even in Pokemon Go yet. That dog looks like a horse. Oh, my God. That could potentially be, like, Gmax only. And Eternatus is one of those Pokemon that is a Gmax Mon. So there could be a reason to do Gigantamax just for the fact that, like, you might not be able to get that Pokemon unless you have good enough Gigantamax Pokemon or can participate in Gigantamax raids. Now, granted, you could completely avoid the feature because most likely a lot of people will still be playing the feature. So when Eternatus does come out, you can just kind of get carried by them to get your Eternatus. But we'll have to wait and see. But that's a good point from PokeAK. It's good. As per Niantic, it needs 39 people to defeat a Gigantamax raid. We're in a rural area, struggle to do 5. How on earth? It's a minimum of 10. Max of 39. What I will say, and based on my predictions, I don't know when this video is coming out. I don't think Gigantamax has been out yet, but when they say minimum of 10, my guess is that you could probably do it pretty easily with 10 people. I think they're not going to make it so that, like, minimum of 10, but no, you actually really, really need like 20 people to take it down. I think if you have over 20 people, it's going to be a piece of cake, but we'll have to wait and see. As you said, Dynamax is an amusing side quest. I've been gathering some good 90 IVs of each type. We'll see how our Gigantamax is. Maybe a little harder than a 5-star raid, but not so hard. It requires coordination than most players are willing to commit to. Yeah, and that's what I agree with. Again, I think that, like, we can't say Gigantamax is going to suck or be amazing before we test it. We can make our theories and what we think is going to happen, but we can't for sure say it's going to suck because, again, maybe it'll be 10 people and it's going to be super easy with 10 people. So really you only need 10 people, which again is a lot of people to get corralled up, but let's say you can get a group of 10. You guys can kind of be like, okay, this is our group of 10. Every time a new Gigantamax boss comes out, this is who we're raiding with or battling with. Then it's pretty easy. You just got to say meet up. But again, I understand specifically rural players, I think this is going to be an impossible feature for them. This is a very, very city-focused feature, in my opinion. Love this video, Dax. Really appreciate the emphasis on mental health and alone time at the end. It's an important reminder for so many people. Glad it's being talked about more. Made me love your videos, your channel even more. Thank you. Appreciate that, Shadow Duke. They need to make these more rateable. We already talked about that. The start overs are like prestige level on COD. I like it. Everyone, please get out there. Bring back a feature speaking multiple buddies on the screen at once. And I fully agree with this. Like, a lot of people are saying, like, why can't we use our old Pokemon? I guess it's from a veteran perspective, but it's nice that everybody kind of starts at square zero with this feature and we all have to kind of build up again. It's the whole point of a video game, right? Like, the fun in the video game is the journey along and catching the Pokemon and getting the better Pokemon. And if Dynamax dropped and we could just, all of our Pokemon we have are already maxed out and the best there is, it's not as fun. It's kind of more fun to have from the start and build up because people are always like, oh my God, I spent thousands on my raid Pokemon and I can't use them in Dynamax battles. You can still use your raid Pokemon in raid battles, you know? Like, it's not like you did that for nothing. It's not like you spent $100 to slay on Reshiram raids to get Reshirams for raids or like raid attacking Reshirams and not be able to, you can still use them. Like, no one was complaining, I guess, like no one was complaining about this when Dynamax wasn't a thing, you know what I mean? But now they're just throwing on this extra little side quest thing that you can do, and it's fun, and it's start from zero. And people's biggest problem is that you can't use your raid Pokemon. I get it, it sucks, you spend all this money, but those Pokemon are still useful in PvP and in raids. I do think it would be nice if there was some interaction between the two and you could use Dynamax, vice versa, blah, blah, blah. But I do not think it's the biggest deal that it's a start from zero, at least is my perspective. I think there is some fun in that. There's obviously negatives to Dynamax, there's positives. The rural thing sucks. The 10 minimum players obviously sucks. Not a lot of people can take advantage of that. But I do think there's some positives, and I think it's a fun. And I think the number one and the final thing I'm going to say about this is, like, I think people need to take a look at fun in Pokemon Go and, like, enjoying Pokemon Go and how important that is, I guess. Because I think people, like, are like, what's the value in this? Is it good for PvP? Is it good for raids? Blah, blah, blah. It's more like Dynamax, Gigantamax, it's there for fun. It's there for enjoyment. It's a new, exciting feature for dopamine, you could say. And that's the reason it's in there. Why would you do Dynamax? To have fun. That's why you would do it, to have fun. So if it's not for you, it's not for you. And I do appreciate how Niantic makes it like you don't need Dynamax Mons. You don't need to interact with that feature at all. There's not much you're missing out on. I guess there's certain special researches that require you to, like, collect max particles or battle in a max raid. But the majority of the game, you could never interact with Dynamax and you'd be completely fine. There's still so much to do, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Okay. One more thing I want to talk about. I'm going to head back to the car, and then we're going to chat about that. But yeah, again, put it in the comment section below if you have any stories about your toxic relationship with Niantic, or with Pokemon Go, or any other video games, and I will react to your answers next week. Oh my God, it hurts every single time I get up. Okay, well, we're back here. Found this nice picnic table. I guess the last thing I want to talk about, and I kind of honestly, yeah, like, I'm going to open up to you guys a little bit now. I'm going to try, at least. This last weekend, doing this marathon, it was pretty emotional for me. It was pretty emotionally exciting, exhausting, across the board. We, like, a funny story I told my aunt after, is when I was, like, nearing the end, it's super exciting because everyone's, like, cheering you on and hyping you up, and I was crying, or, like, I was, like, feeling like I was crying, but I would, like check my eyes and check my tears, and nothing was coming out because I had just ran 42 kilometers and I was so dehydrated that I had no water in my body to cry, I guess. But nonetheless, what I want to say is, like, I'm pretty, like, right now, I don't know if you noticed, I feel like I've been a bit more chill this YAP session because I'm pretty emotionally exhausted, I'm pretty physically exhausted as well, and I need some time to recover. And I think my brain's been kind of foggy, I guess, the last, like, 3 days, trying to figure out, like, you know, just, like, trying to feel, like, all right, you know, mentally and stuff like that. So I guess what I realized coming out here, going on this nice walk, doing this YAP session, and what I want to share with you guys is just, like, be patient with yourself. And I think that's what I need to be right now, is, like, I think a lot of people, even myself included, when I don't feel great, or, like, when I'm struggling with a certain problem or a certain dilemma or whatever, like, I just want to be like, I want everything to be okay right now. I want it to be fixed. How can I fix it? You know what I mean? Sometimes you just gotta let it simmer. You gotta let it go. And sometimes things are gonna suck and you're gonna feel pretty trash, like I do right now. Granted, there's a big reason I probably feel pretty trash, is because I ran 42 kilometers and then drove 4 hours to get back. Like, I've done a lot in the last 3 days. But I think I just need to, like, you know, get used to it and just, like, let it simmer. It's gonna get better. And be patient with yourself. So hopefully that's something that you can maybe take on for this week. Take some time to take care of yourself, and I'm gonna try to do the same as well. We actually, in my new spot, I haven't tested it out, but I have a bath. And I used to actually take some baths. Okay, all I'm saying, baths are underrated. If you don't take baths, underrated form of relaxation. Oh my God, there's an Ottawa City bus doing a tour. Anyway, baths are underrated, so I might this week try to take a bath, Pokédaxy, taking a chill bath, get some chill vibes going, maybe watch some, I don't know, did Trainer Tiff drop a new video? Who can I watch? We'll watch some YouTubers' Pokemon Go content while we're chilling in the bath. Nonetheless, that is the video, guys. That is ending it off on that note. I will say, last thing I want to say, and I have it noted here, you have one life, don't waste it on things you don't enjoy. So if you don't enjoy Pokemon Go, take a break. But again, don't read into too much if you're enjoying the game. So nonetheless, thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. We will catch you guys all next week, because I know the YAP sessions, they're going to keep coming as long as the weather is nice. I do want to say I have a long list of YAP session ideas, but if there's anything more current you guys want updated, because I do want to try to make these YAP sessions a little more of a, I guess like a current, because these are like general topics we've been talking about, but I would love to talk about some more current things in Pokemon Go, events, different stuff like that. So if you have any ideas and things you want me to cover in the weekly YAP sessions, put them in the comment section below, because I'm going to read those. I'm going to throw them on the list, because every week I go check the list. I'm like, what do I want to yap about this week? This week it was about addiction. Next week we'll see what it ends up being about. Nonetheless, appreciate you guys. Watch the video below me if you guys enjoyed this one and you want to listen to some more yaps. And yeah, follow for more tips. I'm not going to go over there to cover the camera, so this video is just going to end now.